Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this amazing Woo University webinar about Streamline Your Practice, the Art of Efficiency and Delegation by Dr. Jennifer Stewart. Thank you so much, Dr. Stewart, for being with us tonight. Super excited to learn from you, as always.
Thank you.
And so a little bit about our Dr. Jennifer Stewart. She is an optometrist, speaker, writer, consultant, and entrepreneur. She is a partner at the Norwalk Eye Care and has been involved in the optometric community for almost 20 years. She is a nationally recognized speaker with a passion for helping optometrists and organizations with operations, optical success, contact lens sales, and practice management through her company, OD Perspectives. She is an established writer and has been featured in most optometric publications. She's also an adjunct assistant professor at the New England College of Optometry. She's a consultant for CooperVision, Xyloware, and GPN. With a deep interest in sports vision, Dr. Stewart is the co-founder and chief vision officer for Performance 2020, which provides services for sports and performance vision training. She's a recipient of the Thea Award for Innovation by Women in Optometry and serves on the executive board for the International Sports Vision Association. She is a proud member of the OWA membership and schools initiative committees and is dedicated to increasing awareness and membership in the optometric community. Dr. Stewart is passionate about sports safety, enhancing performance, and helping business owners achieve their goals. An avid Disney fan, she lives her life by the quote, "If you can dream it, you can do it." I love that. And she's inspired to help others with their dreams. Awesome. So here are Dr. Stewart's financial disclosures, and all financial relationships have been mitigated.
All right.
All right, take it away, Dr. Stewart.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I am super excited to be here. This is my fourth Woo You webinar of the year, and I absolutely love being here. It is by far the largest crowds that I get to speak in front of, whether it's in person or virtual. The number of attendees here far surpasses anything I've ever done. So a thank you to each one of you spending your Monday, it's Monday, yes, Monday, I had to think about that for a second, your Monday evening here with me tonight. And I really, really look forward to sharing some great pearls to help you hopefully finish out your year with a bang and really set some goals about what you'd like to achieve in 2023. So before I get started, I just wanted to give a big thank you to Dr. Stephanie Wu and the Woo You community, her Woo You team that is on here helping behind the scenes, the unbelievable community and education that Woo You has put together is just incredible. And both as a presenter and attendee, I am blown away by the quality of education that she continues to put on and that Woo You continues to produce. So a thank you to the Woo You team who works tirelessly to make sure everything behind the scenes is running smoothly, and to all of you who continue to come out to all of these events. And I really look forward to next year seeing what's on the calendar and what great CE we're in store for. So a thank you to everyone showing up tonight and to the whole Woo You team for making this easy and getting on here early to make sure everything works. Technology is always fun. So a little bit about me. We already heard I am primarily doing consulting and speaking right now, and really love getting out there and meeting all of you, whether it's in person or on these virtual events. I have such a passion for working with independent practices and helping independent owners succeed. And really, I'm just very excited to see how private practice is evolving, and to be a part of that is just a lot of fun. So I do a lot of cool things, but being on Woo You is probably one of my favorite things I get to do. So today we're not going to do anything earth-shattering, anything that I think is new. I sit on so many of these webinars and I'm taking notes because I haven't heard about the medication that somebody's prescribing, or their clinical protocols are different, a disease that I haven't heard about, or symptoms that a patient might be experiencing that are new to me. So this is a little different. And this webinar was really designed not to teach you anything that you don't know, but to hopefully get you to take some time and pause, especially now at the end of the year, and really think about and reflect about how the practice that you've built is running, how you feel walking in the door every day to see patients and manage your staff and be a part of patient care. And if it's not what you envision and it's not what you set out to do, is there a way to change that? And this is a great time, again, to set those goals and to really set intentions for next year and to think about, what do I enjoy about being in practice? What do I enjoy about owning an office? Are there things I don't like to do? And what can I do about that? And what are my goals as a practice owner? So I love to talk about efficiency, and I wanted to make sure I defined it, because I think, we all talk about efficiency, and to everyone that can mean something different. But the true definition of efficiency is the ability to accomplish something with the least waste of time and effort, competence, and being competent in performance. So I always think of myself as a very efficient individual, but I am really sometimes struggle with that, just like many of us. I quickly had to change some slides right at the last minute, even though I've had this prepared for a lot of time. So I wasn't as efficient as I could be, but I always like to think that I'm utilizing my time as best as I can. And we all go into practice with goals, and we all want to do something with our practice, but most of us aren't looking to increase the time that's spent there or increase the number of patients that are there, but we're looking to increase our revenues. We're looking to work smarter and not necessarily work harder. So really, I'd like you to start thinking about your practice, start thinking about how it feels to walk in the morning. Is it a drag? Does it feel like the practice is weighing you down? Do you feel like, gosh, I feel like, as I always, say about a big practice, does it feel like a cruise ship that's really hard to turn, that you have to really work hard to make these changes? And can we do things to make everything in our lives a little easier? So my goals for the course are, if you had the ability to make more free time in your days, if you had the ability to create space, to create time in your day, how would you spend that time? What would you do with it? Where can we make changes in our practices to streamline and to become more efficient, to free up that time? And I had this discussion at a meeting with a couple doctors, and we talked about free time, and everyone says, oh, how's it going? Busy. I'm busy. I have no time. I'm booked out weeks and weeks and weeks. And I just don't have time to do anything. I know there's things I should be doing in my practice, but I can't do that. And it can be easy to say, well, just make more time. And unless you have a magic wand that can create more hours in a day, that's often very difficult. But are there processes that we can put in place in our practices today, tomorrow, this week, the beginning of next year, to do that, to free up that time, to do what we'd like to do in that time? Can you delegate things in your practice? This actually, it was funny. There was a post on one of the online, it wasn't, it's one of the Facebook groups, and it was talking about who uses a scribe. I think it was posted today, so I was trying to read quickly if there were answers to see what people were saying. But are there things in your office that you're holding on to because you're afraid to let go? But if you let go, would that free up some of the time to allow you to do what you'd like to do? If you've ever heard me present in public, I really like to give homework. In person, mostly, I will, encourage people to get out their phones, not to surf the internet or to go on Instagram, but to hopefully take good notes or grab a pen and paper. And I like to give homework. I teach at NECO, so I love to give my students homework. But anytime you see this symbol, I'm going to give you a little take-home homework, and this is going to be your cue that there's some things I'd like you to do. It might be that you reflect a little bit deeper on something I'm saying. It might be that you go back tomorrow to your practices and collect some data and do some mathematical calculations that I promise are simple, but really can make a big difference in kind of figuring out where you are and where you'd like to be and how you get there. So this is my homework symbol for you. So everyone who's watching, all of you, when you see this cue, get your pen and paper ready. And I've got some homework for you. And I'd love if you do end up going through some of the exercises that we talk about, and you do uncover some really interesting pearls or things you didn't know or expect. My email address is at the end, so I'd love for you to share that with me and share what you've discovered, what you plan to do to change that, and keep me posted on how it goes. So get ready for your homework. So how can we build a streamlined, efficient practice and maximize both our time and profitability? So time and profitability are similar and linked, but can be very different. We could spend a lot of time in our office and be there hours upon hours, but not be very profitable. And on the reverse, we can have a practice that is a very fine-tuned machine where we don't spend as much time in the practice seeing patients and is extremely profitable. So again, I'd like you to think which one sounds more appealing to you. So originally my plan was to have polls, and I was going to start this with a poll, but I had a momentary panic that the technology wouldn't work and I'd have a woo you tech fail in front of lots of you. So instead of doing a poll, I'd like you to take this moment, and I'd love to hear from the chat. If I said to you, if you could free up 2 hours, 3 hours, however many hours it is in your week, what would you do with that free time? So let's just take a minute, put something in the chat for me. I'd love to hear from you. If we were in person, I'd call on people that I know, and I know some of you are on there now, so I won't call you out, but I'd love to hear from some of you. What would you do with more free time? Cook. Oh, Mary, that is a good one. I like that. I am not a chef, so I appreciate that. Go kayaking, play more guitar, more golf. I love ride my bike, work out, hike, work with my kids' sports teams and their church youth, travel, keep going, more basketball. I like that. So we've got some basketball going, but we want more. Play poker. Very cool. I like that too. Travel, have family dinners and cook, go to a Taylor Swift concert. Whew. Maybe you have to free up some time to spend on Ticketmaster to get those tickets. So I would spend time making various contact lenses, teach. So very interesting. Travel with family. So I'm sensing a general theme here that a lot of people would, in that free time, choose to spend that time outside of the office. So you can keep entering. I love seeing this. But some of the things I like to think about are, what would we do with that free time? And interestingly, not one person yet. There's still some answers. Snowboard and bake. I like that. I'm not seeing travel. I didn't see anyone really say, see more patients. So find ways to market my office. So very few of us are saying, okay, I want to free up time to increase the number of patients I see. And it might be that that's what you want to do. I just haven't seen that one yet. Travel and golf seem to be big ones. See less patients. And it might be that in my free time, I want to condense my days down. Instead of being there 5 days, I want to be there 4. So I'd like to figure out ways to do that so I can travel, golf, play poker, see Taylor Swift, do all the things that you'd like to do. As somebody mentioned, I'd like to work on the business instead of work in the business. There's lots of things that we know we want to do or should be doing, but we can't seem to find that extra 5 minutes to even go to the bathroom. But we want to work on the business and maybe develop that even further to be more efficient. Staff training and development. Again, we have sometimes there's so much that we want to train our staff with, and we don't know how to do it, and we just get overwhelmed by that. And I've got some tips and a really great suggestion for you on a way that you can make it super efficient and not have to be involved as much. To really get your staff up to speed. Other optometry work, somebody did mention teach. It could be that there's a niche that you want to start. You're interested in starting a dry eye specialty or delving into myopia management, or you're inspired by one of the talks I gave on sports vision and just want to find the time to do that, but haven't been able to take time off. That seems to be the biggest piece there was travel, spend time with family, cook, and do all sorts of things. So I didn't put a little homework symbol because this is a pretty easy one. And I think a lot of us have thought about what would we do with free time? And it could be as simple as 5 extra minutes a day or 5 extra minutes per patient to really start to free up that time and to do that, to have that time available to do things that we love. So I think about time and I think about, does time matter? So absolutely it matters to all of us, but I like to think of it mattering differently to everyone in the office. For doctors, for owner doctors, it matters because there's never enough time to do all of the things we need to do or want to do. So freeing up that time for us can make us better leaders, more efficient, better business owners, and overall better bosses if we have a little more flexibility and free time and maybe a little time out of the office. We all feel a lot more refreshed when we come back after a week vacation. So giving us that time is really important. For the staff, does time matter? Absolutely. freeing up time for them also to do things that are important instead of overloading them with minutia and details and things that could be done a better way. If we can give them the tools to be more efficient and take a leadership role, we can actually free up them to do the work maybe of more people. Maybe we free up them to do more of our work and take on some of our work, and even free up the time for them to take more time off as well. Time matters so much to our patients, and we'll learn a little bit about what's important to patients in the patient care journey. I think long gone are the days that people come in and want to spend 2 hours hanging out in our office. Most people are watching their clock or they're on their phone, and they have places to be. So being really mindful of time for our patients and making the journey of their experience through our office more efficient from even before the time they come to the office can really set the tone. And I'll share a story about how that mattered to me. When I actually was crafting this webinar, I had a great experience to show me how important my time was as well. So do we make things more difficult than they need to be? And I think optometry, we are such a industry that's been around for a long time, but we tend to stay in a rut and do things the same way because they've always been done that way. And do we make it more difficult? Do we add more steps than we need to? Are there ways that we can do things more efficiently and better? I am guilty of that. There are things that I did in my office that I would tell my husband. He goes, "But why do you do it that way?" I go, "Well, that's how you do it. That's how we all do it." He goes, "But," he comes from the financial industry, and said, "But isn't there a different way?" And I said, "Well, no, this is the way we do it." So do we make it more difficult? And are there ways that we can utilize technology to make things easier for us and our patients? So as I alluded to in the beginning, you have to really take a big picture view and be authentic and really take a step back and say, what is the vision of my practice? What did I create? What do I look forward to going to every day? What is the mission of my practice? Do I have a culture that I've created? And who are the patients that I'm trying to attract? And be honest. And we can't be everything to everyone. So many of us have set up our practices to create and attract a certain patient demographic. So we might have that in mind, but are we putting things in place to make sure that we have the right infrastructure, the right technology, the right communication to support the patients that we're trying to attract? What are they looking for in a practice? What are the ways that they want to be communicated with? How do they want to deal with us? Is it on the phone? Is it in person? Is it online? Is it really just never, and I want to just communicate by text message? Is there a way that we can make this easier for the demographic of the patient that we're trying to attract? What matters to them? Really taking a step back and thinking about the community you live in. I live in an affluent area in Connecticut, Fairfield County, Connecticut, with young families. All of my friends have young kids. My boys are 7 and 10. And what matters most to us right now, I think, is time. I have to be 10 places every minute. I'm thinking about my next step. I'm thinking about who has to be to swim practice, who has an ear infection, who is home today with a stomach virus, and work on top of that. So to me, really figuring out how I can do as many things in a short of time and be really efficient is important to me. So when you think about the patients that you see day to day, look at that demographic and think about what's important to them. So again, this would have been a poll here, but in your practices, what's the biggest pain point for you? What's the thing that you go into every day and go, "Oh gosh, I don't want to deal with this. It stresses me out. I don't want to handle this part of practicing optometry." If you were me and you were teaching at NECO and you were teaching students, what would be, and a student said, "Dr. Stewart, what is your least favorite part of practicing optometry, owning a private practice?" What would Dr. Stewart say to her students? I say nothing. I love it. Every day is magic, though. In real life, no-shows. So I see no-shows, rude and entitled patients. That never happens. What else is a pain point for you? Insurance, complaints. So these are things that are pain points to you. And staffing, that's a big one. Staffing in general can be a huge pain point. If I had 10 hours, I could probably cover all of this, but a lot of the pain points that relate to staffing, HR, hiring staff, training staff, managing staff, keeping staff up to date, insurance billing, getting either, whether it's a in-house insurance or outsourcing that, patients that are unappreciative, anything else, patients that don't listen. I don't have that in my presentation. If you can figure that out, then more power to you. But there seemed to be staff turnover is a big one. So staffing is a big one, and just everyday patient flow and management of a practice. So charting, I agree with you there. So hopefully and a lot of the things that you've mentioned are things that we're going to cover. So hopefully I can give you some good advice and some good ideas on how to make that easier. So where can we make changes? You guys much got all of these. So patient communication, how do we communicate to our patients? How do they want to be communicated? Patient ordering, do we make it more complicated and complex than we need to? Office ordering, and when we have to think about all the things that an office takes to run, does that take more time than it should be? Billing, as somebody mentioned, billing and delegation. Are there things that we can delegate and not do to make us happier and to make the office flow better? So making an appointment, this as somebody, first one was no shows. So that you knew my presentation. So I'd like you to think about yourself. How do you prefer to make appointments for yourself and your family? Is it the same way that patients make appointments with your practice? Is there a way that you prefer to engage and find a new practitioner or make a follow-up appointment or a routine visit with your primary care, with your pediatrician, with your dermatologist? Is that the way that you are running your office and that patients are able to make appointments with you? If it's not, are there ways that we can stop and make that easier for the patient? So there's different ways. And again, that there's no right or wrong answer to this. And it depends, I think, a lot on your community, your patient demographic, your patient base, how patients like to communicate, and where one way might work for one type of practice, it's not an end all be all. But I'd like to engage you to start thinking about ways that you can differentiate yourself and your services. Phone, email, online appointment requests. So where you put in, I'd like to make an appointment with Dr. Stewart, and then the office gets back to them. A chat bot, a lot of our practices have a chat bot that you can schedule directly, or you go ahead and you use one of the softwares available to schedule yourself. So interestingly, I wanted to find some information. So I love data, and I'm an N of one, and I know how I like to do things, but that doesn't mean that that's the way that patients want to do it. So I looked and said, well, what do patients like? And not surprisingly, 43% of patients prefer to book their appointments online. And the average phone call, when you think about, there are doctors that say, my patients do not want to book their appointments online. They'd rather call and speak to Susie, who knows them personally. And it's a better experience for my practice. That might be true. But when you think that an average phone call to schedule an appointment takes about 8 minutes. So now you think about your front desk, how many appointments are they scheduling per day? Even if they're only scheduling 4 appointments per day, which hopefully they're scheduling more, that takes 30 minutes out of their day just to schedule 4 appointments. That's 30 minutes that they're not doing something else that could be more efficient and effective for their office. So that I didn't, well, actually it is one of the homeworks. And think about that when you have open appointments, there's really no way for you to actively engage. There are some ways. So there are some ways that you can actively try and fill those appointments. But almost a quarter of appointments that were scheduled online are scheduled for that same or next day. So that's filling up our empty slots that would often go unused. Because likely if somebody's calling to schedule an appointment, it's going to be hard for them to get there in the next hour or even that day for that appointment. Where if they're on their phone and their mobile device, they might be out and about and can easily do that. And they might be thinking about it in the moment and really take advantage of having an open slot. So 34% of new patients were able to make an appointment outside of business hours, which is really important if we're trying to engage new patients and draw new patients into our office. So our first homework assignment of the evening is I'd like you to think about that. And I'd like you, even if you want to quietly observe in your office, maybe sit somewhere and listen to your front desk when somebody's making an appointment. You could do, even if you want to do secret shopping and have somebody call and make an appointment with your office, a friend or family member, and see how long it takes your staff to make that appointment. And a lot of us think maybe it's 30 seconds to a minute, but if it's a patient that's known by your staff, there's going to be 3 to 4 minutes of how are your holidays, how are your kids, how are your family? And then they get into that, which is great. But when you see the amount of time that it takes to make one appointment, multiply that by the number of times that this person's making an appointment, and then you have 2 to 3 people possibly per office scheduling these, you'll certainly see where this could be a time saver if you allow patients to have the ability to schedule themselves. So that's your first homework assignment. However, you can figure out a way to even have your staff time themselves. You don't have to tell them why. You could say, I heard a presentation last night. I'm just curious how long it takes us to do that. And that's a great way to get that started. So I will, quick story about me. I am switching dental providers, and I actually wanted to test this out. So I found 3 dentists, and I tried to figure out how to contact each of them. The first one all had great reviews on Nextdoor and the moms group. So I said, well, I know these 3 are well liked in the community. The first one had no email address, and it was really hard to find their phone number on the website. I did find it, and when I called, they were out to lunch, and I had to leave a message for them to call me back to schedule an appointment. I didn't hear from them for 2 days. So that was first on my list. As you can imagine, that wasn't the first one that I decided to go with. Second appointment, they had an online scheduling where you could submit to schedule. So I put in my information, sent it out, and waited for an appointment, waited for them to get back to me. The third one had a chat bot where I could go online, and I started chatting with somebody in their office. They asked me all of the information as I'm doing something else. They gave me 3 open appointments. I selected one. As we were on our chat, they asked me for my email address. And while we were on our chat, they emailed me all of the paperwork, directions to the practice. I took a picture of my insurance card and emailed it. And it took about 2 minutes for me to do all of that on a chat bot. And it was super easy for me. So if you can guess which practice I went with, it was the third. It took a while for that second practice to get back to me. Even though I was able to submit something online, they took a while to get back to me with dates and times. And then we went back and forth a few times, and it took them about 2 to 3 hours to respond each time that I emailed. So again, just thinking about it from a patient side of the journey, what's the best, what was best for me, and what ultimately was what I wanted to go with was somebody who was quick and efficient. So I have a dentist appointment in January, so we'll see if I like the practice as much as my initial experience, but I will say it was very positive. So there's solutions out there. I will say none of the lists that I'm giving you are an extensive collection of everyone that can do all of this, but I didn't want to play favorites with one if I just gave you one, but I wanted to give you a number of different ways that you can utilize a service like this in your practice. So a lot of the EHR services have this, and add-ons like Patient Pop, Demand Force, and Solution Reach also provide some level of this type of service. So again, not an extensive list by any means, but just some to get you thinking about if this would be appropriate, and how you can manage that with your office. So contact lens ordering was another big one. Oops. So contact lens ordering is one of those situations where I think we often make it more complex than we need to. So a lot of us are either stocking lenses in-house, or we're shipping direct, and hopefully pros and cons of each. I like shipping direct because there's less staff time involved. But when we think about a patient calling our office to order contact lenses, or even emailing, I'll even defer to that. It can be very, very complex and difficult. And the number of steps that goes into that can actually cost us a lot of money. So when we think about contact lens ordering, I just pick up the phone and call the distributor or whoever I order from, and it goes right to them. But I'd like you, again, there's your homework symbol, to take a piece of paper, or it could be a Post-it note, it could be a series of Post-it notes. And I'd like you to actually use a Post-it note for every step on the patient journey that goes into ordering contact lenses. So it could be that the patient picks up the phone and calls your office. If you have paper charts, the staff has to put the patient on hold, go find your chart. Hopefully it's not in the wrong spot. Grab the chart, flip through, make sure that the patient's current, check the prescription. How many boxes would you like? Or hopefully they're saying, I'll ship your annual supply home. Or if they had done that when the patient was in, the patient would need to be calling, but check the information, make sure their address is correct, get their credit card information, put the patient on hold, run the credit card, and then place the order through whatever software or system you're using, place that order, give it to the front desk, and then reconcile it with the patient's chart, and then hopefully be done. If it's coming to the office, then it has to be checked in. The patient has to be called multiple times to let them know the contact lenses are there. Patient comes in, makes that payment, and then leaves. And all of those steps, every time that a staff member is involved with that patient interaction, it is costing money. It doesn't seem a lot, but when you add that up over the course of the day, and you add that up with the number of patients who are calling your practice to order contact lenses, that number is significant. So again, it's not a flood of water. It is a slow drip from a leaky faucet that over time does a lot of damage. And that damage is the effect of profitability, and time is money. So if we can save time, if we can shave off a few steps of that journey and shave off a few of those touch points for our staff members, we can do whatever we want that could generate more time by seeing more patients, free up more time for you to do other things, or free your staff up to do more of the things that they need to get done. Again, some solutions are out there. Doctor Contact Lens is a great solution started by an OD, really passionate about trying to streamline the contact lens journey and make it easy for patients to engage with their doctors. Marlowe, CLX, Eurolens.com, Abby, distributor-based systems all have different ways to do this, with giving patients the ability to order online through you, and to really make this process a lot easier and less step intensive, and hopefully streamline that process. This is something I never really thought about. We don't give a lot of thought to how many touch points there are for our staff when a patient is doing something in the office. But if there's something you want to make more efficient, or something that you think is taking more time than it needs to be, I know that I'm talking about efficiency, but grab a stack of Postit Notes and really put them in order of each time that you have to do something different. And you'll see that whole list of things that need to be done, and a light bulb will go off and you go, well, this can't be. It seems so easy. But when you see all those steps involved, and how many people are involved, and how many places it can go wrong, how many places can the chart get misfiled? Can the contact lenses be forgotten to order? Can somebody forget to charge that patient, or call the patient to let them know that they're due for an exam, or that they need to come in and pick their lenses up? Human error also can cause a lot of problems. So if we can eliminate the human part of that interaction and make it more streamlined, it can make it a lot easier for everybody. So as somebody said, communication, reminders, and forms. So the other thing I hate doing is going to an office and being handed, I will say first, my least favorite thing is when you make an appointment with an office, they email you all of the forms. And how many people has this happened to? You go through, and I'm diligent, and I'm the A+ student who does my forms really beautifully. I bring them in, or I email them, or I input them in the portal. And then you show up and they give you the same form, and you're going, but I already did this, and I'm here early, but sure, I'll do it again. And you take all your time to input everything, and you write the same things down, and you give it to the front desk, and then you sit down in the exam room with the technician, who then proceeds to ask you exactly the same questions that you have already answered 3 times. And by now I'm starting to go, does anyone know what they're doing in this place? And if this is my first impression, what is the rest of my exam going to be like? So I'd like you to think about the patient perspective. And is that something that we're doing when that we don't notice? That we're asking them to fill out the same forms multiple times. We're asking them, please arrive 15 minutes early to fill out forms. How many patients come 15 minutes early? Almost 0. So now they're even showing up 5 minutes late, and they have to fill out their forms, and it disrupts our whole office flow. And this is another great homework, is to ask your front desk to keep a tally of those new patients, or patients that need to come in and fill out their paperwork early. What's the percentage that actually do it? And if it's 100%, maybe you are working with a well-oiled machine and it's working well and your patients are happy. But if it's a significantly lower percentage and those patients are even showing up late, they're really disrupting the flow, and your front desk will know about it, because no one likes to make the office run late. And if these are new patients, that's a not great first impression for them as well, if they feel flustered and rushed. So, a great comment by somebody: scrap the forms and train your techs well. Patients despise filling out forms. I agree. Just collect the data during their history. So that is one way to do it, is to just scrap those forms, because your technician likely is going to go over it again. And there's other ways to do it as well. I always say be green. No one likes getting a clipboard, especially during COVID times. No one really wants to touch anything still, even if we wiped it down really carefully. But if you're trying to cultivate the impression of technology and the impression of being this high-end, well-designed, well thought of practice, maybe you've put in a beautiful high-end optical, you're doing aesthetics, you've got this high-end feel, or you really are trying to attract that patient demographic, yet you're handing a clipboard with a form that's been Xeroxed about 40 times and is smudged and hard to read. And then your technicians are trying to input that or just carrying that with them. Just think about that as, is that the image that you're trying to project? So be green. You can eliminate that paper. It eliminates that double entry. So your front desk is not having to re-enter things that could have been done by the patient. And again, the risk of putting in errors. It's impressive. I love when I get texted, I make an appointment and automatically a text comes with my patient portal information. I can enter everything in there. And when I walk in to see my doctor, they pull it up on a screen. And to me, it's just an impressive flow. And I know that there's less chance that something could go wrong. And to me, that's impressive. So what are some solutions? One solution I didn't put on here is, as one of our attendees said in the chat, eliminate it all. Don't have any forms. Maybe the patients fill out their own demographic information in a portal, and then your technician does all the history gathering in the office. But there's other ways to do it. Again, not an exhaustive list, but intake queue, jot form, and your EHR might have portals and ways to do this. So just to get you thinking, just because we've done it this way, does it mean we always have to do it this way? So any questions or comments there? Lots to get through and so much good stuff to talk about. So show of hands, I wish we could do this in a real room. Whose lab or front desk manager's office, or wherever you store all your stuff, whose office looks like this with catalogs and catalogs and catalogs? Anyone have a hoarder in their office on their staff who can't let that catalog go from 1999 because that's the only place we can order these drops from, and I won't remember? And what's one more catalog? If your office, these are magazines, I couldn't find the right picture for catalogs of ophthalmic drops and equipment, but if your office looks like this, I have the solutions for you. So my staff loved to collect everything. And when we switched offices, I filled up a dumpster just of paper and of stuff that they collected. And also we tried to teach them to order things online, but then I looked at their browsers and went, how do you function with the number of bookmark sites you have? There are 3,000 sites bookmarked. How do you even remember where to order things from? And inevitably, I'd run low on phenylephrine or proparacaine and go, Judy, we need to order more of this. You go, oh gosh, I forget where we order that from. Does anyone remember? Let's look through all the catalogs and the websites and try and find the best pricing. And while we're here, should we add something on we're paying shipping anyway. So what else can we order? And now we've spent half of a day, all of us, spending all of this wonderful time trying to remember where to order stuff from and then padding an order to get the most out of the shipping. Is there a better way to do this? And can we make our offices more efficient on the mundane things of ordering just everything we need to run our practice daily? Our staff would go, well, I'm going to look at 5 different sites and find the best price. And, this one has it for 10 cents cheaper, but I pay you $25 an hour and it took you an hour to do that. So I didn't save any money. Sometimes we're ordering from multiple places and we have all these shipping costs. So this is another homework symbol is really maybe tomorrow go in and make a list of your 10 things that you order a lot and ask your staff, where do we order this from? And kind of put them on the spot and see if they know the answer, if they know it right away, if they have it easily accessible. If not, this is a great way to say, don't worry, delete all your bookmarks, throw out all those catalogs. I've got some ways that can really make this easier and just streamline it and keep it simple so we don't have to worry about it. So some of my staff will say, well, let me find it cheaper. I'm going to, go on the internet and go spend 2 hours searching for something less expensive. We think about lens cloth. So maybe we can find them from Alibaba or China and I can get them on bulk, but we have to negotiate pricing. There's often a large minimum offer. The shipping is expensive. As we know, these things can take time. And when we get it, we open the box and go, oh my gosh, is this what I ordered? I don't even know. And now it's been 4 to 6 weeks and I'm stuck with things that I'm not even sure is what I wanted. So you don't have to do all the work. I've made it simple for you. There are some great solutions. We're going to hear from our friends at OptiZoom who can share some information about that. There's some great places also: Burnell, Amcon, OptiSource, Sigma Pharmaceuticals, Hilco. Anything you need from your office. My staff would go, can we get a special screwdriver for this? I go, yes, just find it and buy it. I don't want to search. I don't feel like spending the time to do that. And it's not a great use of your time as well. So we can really find ways to streamline even just the things that we have to order for our practice. Again, being creative of how can I free up time in every part of my office to give me that flexibility to do other things that I want to do. Billing and coding, that was a big one when I asked for some advice on what are your pain points. So does anyone have a system with a name? Show of hands. Yes, mine was Heather. So my billing and coding system was Heather. She knew everything. She was amazing. She was my system. That was pretty much it. Heather does a great job. Does she? I assume because she looks like she knows what she's doing, she says the right words. I'm too busy. I assume that things are getting paid, but here's your homework. I'd like you to spot check 20 claims going back 90 days. Pick them randomly, different insurers, different patients. Take 20 claims and check and see how good of a job is Heather doing. Did you receive the payment that you're supposed to? Were those claims rejected? Were they just written off? And even worse, was that claim even submitted? So often this one is one that we want to take out of our heads and just say, I can't, this isn't something I can do. I'm going to assume that because I see some money going into my bank account that Heather's doing a great job. Hopefully she is, but we really have to be mindful, especially on something like this. Is she doing the best job she could? So what would happen if Heather was out of the office for an extended period? My Heather had a very rough year. In 1 year, both of her parents passed away within about 2 months of each other. So there was a lot of time that Heather was in and out of the office, or when she was in the office, she wasn't really efficient or at her best. Things backed up, stresses everybody out, stresses Heather out. What happens if Heather leaves? What happens if Heather decides to retire or gets a new job? Do you have a plan in place to replace the work that she's doing, or does everything stop? So there's different ways to handle this. And again, there's no right or wrong. And I have friends and colleagues that are doing either. And I love doing these lectures because I get to pull my friends and say, tell me what you're doing. Why do you like it? Why not? So a lot of us are outsourcing our billing, and for many, many, many reasons. And those include, they know things. They are trained on this. They know how the federal government payers work. They have really great analytics and really can keep us up to date. They're always available. So there's always somebody working on our account, and they're not on vacation. They don't leave. They're more efficient and effective. So they are faster and they have usually better efficacy. It reduces staff time because you're not paying an additional staff member to do this. You tend to be more profitable because you have a lower accounts receivable, and they can often do other services, credentialing, eligibility, and benefits, things like that. So, and from one of our colleagues also saying had a biller that sounded and looked great, but when I checked, she had written off thousands of dollars because the claims required follow-up. Much better now with several fail-safe checks and cross-checks in place. Hope to never repeat that mistake again. So again, we assume that things are being done correctly, but if something gets rejected, they can just go, well, that was it. Sorry, maybe better luck next time. And they're not following up on that. So what our colleague mentioned there is something that happens often too much. What are the cons of outsourcing? I know some of us feel very passionate about keeping in our office. The cost can be significant, often on a percentage base. So if you have a larger practice, that cost can be significant as you have a higher revenue. There's a feeling of trust or a lack of control. I can't control what's going on when I'm outsourcing it. There's a relationship between the patient and the practice. So when we have a third party that gets involved, I know how I feel when I get a bill and I'm going, who is this even from? I don't ever, like, this that makes no sense. I was like, oh, that's my doctor's office. Often there's this feeling of a third party being involved can kind of change that relationship. Technology, are using paper records? Is your EHR compatible with the service that you're looking in? And again, that comfort level with delegating this piece and delegating and kind of feeling confident that somebody else is taking good care of your business. So there are solutions. Again, there are probably more that I didn't discover, or I've been mining the Facebook groups to look for some guesses, but two of the most common ones that I see and that friends and colleagues are using, CSI and RevCycle, are two great, very reputable groups that can really help you get this under control if you feel like this is somewhere that you might have recently lost control or feel like things are spiraling that you can't seem to get under control. And I know as we struggle for staff, this might be a great one that you can feel confident outsourcing, because there are great people that can do this, and you will see that money come back into your account. And it's one of those places that we can have control. So how many utilize a scribe in the exam room? I know we're getting close on time. So in the chat, give me a yes, give me a no, give me a I don't know how to do it. What are we seeing from our colleagues? How many of us are using a scribe? You guys are quick. Yes, yes. Oh, there's a heck yes. I won't say what really was in there, but a heck yes. I like that. Text for workup, a no scribe, a lot of no's. So equally split. No, but I want to. Okay, I'm hoping I can give you some help there. So lots of no's. This was going to be a poll. I will say, looking at this, the overwhelming majority is no. I want one but can't afford. Don't want to increase patient volume. Okay, doctor, I'm coming for you. Give me a second. When I had shoulder surgery. So using a scribe was, for me, the single best change I made in my practice when we switched to EHR. I did not want to sit there chatting. Yes, but they're not good. Okay, I wish I had a scribe at times. Okay. So for me, it was the single best decision I made as a clinician, was to have somebody in there. So I know that some of us put in the chat, I use the term scribe, some of us will say technician, and there's a million different things that they can do, or that we allow them to do in the office, and there's things that we keep ourselves. So this can be pre-testing, taking that history, reviewing systems, doing some entrance testing, additional testing. Maybe they're, in addition to the pre-testing, they're doing OCTs or visual fields. They could be physically in the exam room with you, which was my scribe. My scribe would take the patient from the waiting room, do all of the pre-testing, do their patient history, visual acuity, any additional testing. They would sit in the exam room with me with an iPad. They would enter everything I said. I didn't touch a computer. When I talked about contact lenses, they would get up and get the diagnostic. So they were waiting after a slit lamp, so the patient would put them in. And then they would do some patient education if I needed to. And then if they were not getting glasses, they would escort the patient out and even check them out. So they had they were a fully trained kind of second arm to me. The one thing they didn't do in my office that I kept to myself was refraction. I know that's a hot button item, what we let people do, but I liked refracting. So for my doctor who said, I would love to do it, but I can't afford it, here's what I hope will be your homework, to think about how you can afford it, and how not having one is something that can be feel insurmountable, but really you can do. So if we think about average revenue per exam, I'd like you first tomorrow to measure your average revenue per exam if you haven't done that. But I took this from the MBA numbers. So if we took that the average revenue per exam was $306 for argument's sake, and that the average doctor was seeing 15 exams per day at $306 per exam and was grossing $45.90 per day. So with a scribe, if you were able to see an additional 2 patients per day, because that scribe made you 2 minutes faster in every exam, and you were able to add one before lunch and after lunch, because every exam you were able to do a little quicker, and I'm just asking for 2. That would be a $612 a day increase, an increase of over $3,000 a week, $12,000 a month, or almost $150,000 a year if we assume a 48-week year. These are easy numbers, they're round numbers. I know that this is just multiplication there, and this might not be exactly what can happen in your practice. But if you can think of it like this, especially my doctor in the chat who said, I'd love to, but I can't afford that. This might be a way for you to start thinking, what can a scribe do, not just to save me time, but to make me more efficient, and not only pay for their salary, but to make me more profitable as well. So think about this tomorrow when you go in. Think about, are there ways that I could speed my exam up 1 to 2 minutes per exam? Maybe it could be that I want to spend that time doing nothing and taking a break and actually taking a lunch or leaving early. Or I'd like to be more profitable, and maybe I'm a new practice and I want to see more patients, and I'd like to cover the cost of that scribe. How can I do that? Here's how you do that. And just by streamlining that and giving them part of your exam to do, and to do a little more efficient, if you can squeeze in a few more exams per day, if that's your goal. If it's not, that's okay too. But this is a way that you could generate extra revenue and cover the cost of that scribe. So I'm glad that somebody mentioned that. There's other ways. Somebody mentioned this earlier. What about virtual assistants and technicians? This is a huge growing field and a huge change. COVID's been interesting for some things. We're here virtually tonight, but a lot of practices are starting to use virtual assistants and virtual technicians, whether that be for efficiency, maybe that's for cutting costs on staffing, or practices that are really struggling to fill these roles in their practices are turning to a virtual assistant, whether that's somebody offsite answering phone calls or doing admin tasks such as confirming appointments and doing eligibility, to even somebody who's physically in the exam room on a screen who's acting as a scribe for the doctor, and they're there virtually. So these are 2 of the big ones, again, that I see come up in the chats. I have not used either of these, but Hello Rach and I Help You are 2 really well-known virtual assistant companies in the optometric community. So this could be a way for you to test the waters if having a person doesn't fit your budget or doesn't fit your space, or it just seems more appealing to you to have somebody there virtually. These could be some ways to do that. So if anyone's using these, please feel free to share it in the chat. I'd love to know your experience. What else can you delegate? Everything. That's why I asked about your pain points. What can you not handle, and what do you want to get rid of? There are so many different things. Website, your social media, if you don't like doing it, send it to somebody else. Bookkeeping, payroll, HR, marketing, optical sales, consulting, and strategy. We talked a little bit about staff training. If you haven't checked out Spexy, check out Spexy. There's some great modules on there to make staff training, take it off your plate and make sure it's done consistently and done really well. So staff training is a huge time suck, and doing it well and doing it consistently can really be a challenge. Often we give it to somebody else to do, which takes that person off the floor too. And now we're even more short-staffed. So if there's ways we can do that more efficient and effective with online training, definitely check out Spexy for that. So in short, what do you like to do and what don't you like to do? And be honest. I like social media for myself. I absolutely don't like doing it for a practice. It's just not something I find fun. So I tried doing it, but at times I just felt like, gosh, I just don't want to do this. So this is something I want to outsource. I love doing optical management and I love optical metrics, but some people, the thought of that makes them cringe and they're like, I just don't have time to learn that. That's a great one to outsource and maybe bring in a consultant to help you look at the metrics and help you make changes. Hire the right people when you want to delegate. Make sure you hire those people that are going to be a good fit for your culture. Read the book, Who Not How. Not how am I going to do this, but who is going to help me do that, or who is going to do that for me, and really building up the right team to make sure that we can do all the things we want to do. Educate, make sure you're communicating with your staff and providing feedback. I love the saying, praise openly and correct privately. Make sure that we really talk about our wins in a big group, but if there's something you need to address, individually, make sure that's done privately, to make sure that you really encourage people to take risks and take leaps. Accept that mistakes will happen as you delegate, things will go wrong, but you have to accept that and move along. And as I often say, get out of your own way, let your staff shine, give them all the tools they need to be successful, and stop talking, back off, let them do something. A mistake might happen, but they will learn, and they might have ways of doing things that are even better that they've been waiting to share with you. What can happen if we do this? We can expand our patient care, bring on a specialty, have great financial growth. We can decrease our stress, decrease our workload. Maybe we bring in an associate, bring in a scribe. Everyone can be happier. I mean, don't we all want to be happier and be happier going to our practice? And if you can think about and be honest about the things that you don't enjoy doing and find a way to outsource those or to make those more efficient, it really is such a burden, and it releases that feeling of a burden or a weight on your chest. I'd like to leave you with this. If you do this, if you change one of these, I'm not asking you tomorrow to go in and tell your staff, we're going to do online appointments, I'm bringing in a virtual assistant, I'm going to have a scribe, I'm outsourcing everything, our billing's going away. You can't do it all, and you can't do it all tomorrow. But if you were to choose one of the things that I talked about, if you were inspired by one thing I shared, and you decided tomorrow or January 1st that you were going to bring in a scribe and figure out a way to pay for her or him, you were going to outsource your staff training, you were going to add virtual appointment scheduling or real time, what's the worst that could happen? I don't know. We have to see. The great thing about owning your own business is that you have the flexibility and the freedom and the choice to make these changes, and also learn to evolve as your business evolves. And if something does not go the way you want to do, you can pivot and make some changes and continue to grow. But with that, I ended on time. Thank you. This has been an absolute honor and joy, and I hope that I've inspired you. I hope that I've encouraged you to take some leaps in faith and look at your practice a little differently. Think of what brings you joy, and think of things that make you cringe and you don't want to do, and that you can figure out ways to delegate that and go in and do the things you want to do.